not remember, we're talking about the proper timing. I know sometime we've had lessons, I'm for sure most of us have had lessons on faith. But even after we have lessons on faith, there's still more dimensions that we need to learn. I'm for sure that most of us have heard enough about faith, and we found out that every time we acted in certain ways, things did not respond the way we were told or we expected or as it was shown to us. So there had to be something else missing that will help us. Now, I'm not going to say that every time we go to God that God's going to just jump to us when we respond. But we need to do all we can on the human side. That is what is required of us. And so 3 times in the Bible it says that there is this thing called the obedience of faith. 3 times it's mentioned. So when you see something 3 times in the Bible, that to me draws my attention. I mean, why would God tell me 3 times about the obedience of faith? Then God gave us, I think, one of the greatest examples of it through the great person Abraham, that there is a time of opportunity. And God expects for us not only to operate in faith and walk by faith, but he also expects us to respond in a proper time. We talked about 3 types of times in the Bible. There's a time called hora, which could just be simply mean you just get around to it anytime. And that's probably the way most of us kind of deal with God. When I get around to it, after I watch Oprah and after I do all of this, watch the 6 o'clock news and do all that, put the baby to bed, then I might get around to doing something that God has asked me to do early this morning. Because, but God is a God that expects us to live by time. Now, he is not a time creature, but I want to let you know he created time. That's right. And he created time for a particular person. We know that's even true because he even talked about even Jesus Christ coming into the world. It was a proper timing. We also have another word we talked about, chronos time, which can mean a short period or a long period. And what God wants us to understand too, that sometimes God will respond to us quickly, and sometimes he'll take a long time. In our example's case, who was Father Abraham, 25 years. And there's nobody that I can mention in the Bible that showed the proper type of faith than Father Abraham. In fact, it was so proper that God even writes about it. So therefore, God left then us an example that there is a proper timing. Then there is the time called Kairos time, which means that it's a time of opportunity. It's a time for promises or claims and commands to be fulfilled. And what I'm trying to say is probably a lot of us have operated at the wrong time in the wrong situation. Amen. I mean, sometimes we thought it was going to be instant, and it wasn't instant. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we just kind of dilly-dallied around when God wanted something to happen in your life like right now. So we have probably, in our cases, missed a lot of opportunity because we didn't know how to respond at the proper timing. Like I said, 3 times, which is a time of witness, a time of record, that God has said there is the obedience of the faith, or translated in some cases, the obedience of faith. And so we'll see things that are happening together. Now, there are a lot of words that the Bible uses for obedience or obedient or to hear or to listen. A lot of those words are the same word. God expects when you hear, he expects obedience.
That's right. Amen. That's right. That's right.
We kind of learned that from our parents, but we got kind of lazy with it. We didn't appreciate the proper response. So I'm going to take out of all the list of words, I'm putting 2 words together because in the Bible we'll find this situation so truthfully. I told you last time I was speaking that the word there, hupakoe, which means to hear, it's a compound word. And it means to hear and under. So you have the word in there, akuo, which means to hear. We get a word acoustics. to hear. But notice here, it's just not hearing in the air, it's hearing under authority.
All right. Amen. Ah, glory.
See, what we fail to learn is that we're willing to hear, but we don't want to hear under authority. And that's the first word that we need to understand, is that we have to hear under authority. It means to submit yourself to authority.
That's right.
Now you'll find another word that you probably wouldn't even think that has anything to do with hearing, and the word there really is pathos, P-E-I-T-H-O, which really means persuade. And see, and that's been a problem too, that a lot of times we have heard, but we haven't been persuaded. Oh, you guys not listening to me? God expects when you hear that you are to be persuaded, and therefore you will then respond. If you're not persuaded, you won't what now? If you think it's a joke, and you've had people talk to you and kind of this random talking, yeah, you know, I'm not going to respond. But see, God doesn't do that with us. In fact, we're going to discover today, and I'm going to kind of jump in my notes, that God talks about the voice. And the voice in the Bible means more to you than you can possibly think. Voice in the Bible means that God has given you a summons. It is a legal summons. Most of us have heard about a summons. Has anybody ever seen a summons to go to court, or a summons to go to be a witness? And that doesn't mean that you just kind of throw it away. It means that you are to show up. The word can also mean called, but it also means, and so when God calls you, when he uses his voice, it is a legal summons. Asking you don't have a choice. Because if it's hupokoe, you have submitted yourself. The first thing you do, you submit yourself to the authority of the voice.
Oh, yeah. Praise God.
Boy, that's for us. We need to understand that. So then, now listen to this then. Abraham understood that. I mean, even if you go back, and we won't go back to that, when God asked him to sacrifice his son, notice you don't see any argument.
All right. That's right.
In fact, if you read it very carefully, you don't even see any hesitation. If you read it very carefully, you don't see any question. Now, I might give God some questions. Ed Haygood, I want you to take your boy up to where I tell you to take him, and when you get there, I want you to kill him and sacrifice him unto me. Now, I've already waited 25 years for this boy.
All right now.
So to me, this is a very precious child. But notice that Abraham understood the summons. Oh, you guys not listening. He understood the obedience. Now the word there, pathos, which also means, which falls in obedience, but it also means to be persuaded. I think I gave you some definition, but let me say it this way. When we understand obedience in the word of persuasion, it means to be persuaded in the passive or middle voice. Now that's important. Somebody say, well, what do I need to know about all those voices? Because God is telling you how he's going to work with you. Number one, if it's in the passive voice, God is saying, when I speak to you, I want you to know I'm going to help you. Amen. That's going to help you to be persuaded. If I have divine assistance, that ought to mean I ought to be able to be persuaded to do it. Number one, he's not asking me to do it in my own human power. He said that there's divine power available to you. And then he says in the middle voice, he says, then you do it to yourself. So don't worry about what somebody else is doing. I spoke to you. This is for you. You do it for yourself. Now, the reason why probably a lot of us have not received any blessings from God is because, number one, we don't know it's for ourselves. You out there telling everybody else what God told you to do, and you're not even doing it. You went out there and started saying, let us. The middle voice is not let us. The middle voice is you do it. Now, the timing is important. The best thing to start doing things with God is what now? Right now. No. No. That there is too educational. It's right now. You know right now. Right now is faster than right. Now, I know some of us will say, that pastor said right now. Well, no, that's, it's right. I mean, that's quick. Don't mess around. It's to be done right now. And see, it's not how long God responds. He's looking at the response of your heart. See, we're going to discover today that faith is invisible. The only thing that, and it's invisible to men, but it's not invisible to God. But the only way you know that you have the faith is when you obey, which becomes visible. The obedience becomes visible to the heart faith that is invisible. Well, anyway, I hope you can digest that. Now, there's something you need to put into your mind that we had last time. And I said, learn this. Obedience is the fulfillment of God's claims or commands. Now, everybody say that with me. Obedience is the fulfillment of God's claims or commands. Now, God's claims and God's command is his will. So it's just really being obedient to his will. Now, if God speaks to you, it must be his will.
His will, that's right.
I mean, why else would he speak to you?
Yeah.
He's not a gossiper.
Amen.
Oh, man. He speaks by the voice. And the voice in the Bible is a summons for your response. What else? Disobedience is the fulfillment of God's command or claims of command. It is, watch this, it is subjection. When we look at it as hupakoe, it is subjection to order. The subjection to order. In other words, I'm putting order there because God is not going to tell you to do something that's out of order.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, you got to understand that. If it ends up and it's not in order, then that's the wrong voice. It's order. God is a God of order. Every day you see it. Or if it's cloudy, you can't see it. But every day, the order, the sun comes up where? It sets where? Every what now? Has it ever changed? It's been that way ever since he said, I'm going to make two great lights in the universe, one to rule the day and one to rule the night. And that phenomena it's really a phenomenon because really the sun doesn't rise and set. It's because the way the earth turns, it appears that the sun is rising and the sun is setting. But the order is the earth has been turning on its axis ever since God said turn. And it's been turning ever since. How do we know it's turning? We get seasons. How do we know it's turning? If you watch the sky carefully, you can tell when the season is coming if you understand where the sun comes up. There's an angle, in the summertime you're over there, in the wintertime you're over there, because the earth has done what? The sun didn't move, but the earth has done what now? It's tilted. And it's been doing that all of my life. Now, there's some people in here older than me. Has it been doing it all your life? So there is order. So God is just asking us then to be subjective, be in subjection to what now? To order. Now, when we look at the word for persuasion, especially in the passive voice, it also means this. It means agreed. If you have been persuaded, you agree.
That's right. Amen.
If you don't agree, you're not persuaded.
Praise God.
Now, let's go back and look at this passage again. Go over to Romans chapter 4, verse 21. And we see this concept of persuasion. Notice here too in the Bible, I'm going to help you out, that the word persuasion and the word faith are not always, but in many cases, they always find themselves in relationship. There's a close relationship being persuaded and acting in trust. Because if you are not persuaded, you're not going to trust anybody. And if you trust them, you are persuaded. I was just looking at down in Orange County, they have senior citizens, and some slick lady saw an old man. I don't know if you guys saw it on the news. And boy, and they persuaded him. And he trusted him and gave him $40,000. I don't know if he was lonely or what. He was kind of crazy. I mean, you just don't walk up to people without a record. See, God has left you evidence. Oh, you guys didn't hear that. God has left you evidence. Now, you might not see the evidence, or you might look over the evidence, but there is evidence. And evidence can help you to agree now or with God. Now, persuaded. Now let's see how persuaded Abraham was in Romans 4, verse 21. Listen what it says. And being how? What? We could look at that word because we've been studying on Tuesday night. We can be looking at perfect. We can say that he was completely persuaded. There was nothing else that you guys ain't listening. There was nothing else that he needed in order to respond to God. Even though he knew he was an old man. Oh, you guys. Evidences in the physical world said this is impossible. But God spoke into the world, you guys, and in the world he said, it looks like it's impossible, but when I speak, that which is impossible becomes possible. He said that Abraham, see, we missed that. And sometimes we teach about Abraham having faith, but we understand he had more than faith. He had, with his faith, he had persuasion. That's why he could act. Like right now. Right, thank you there. Right now, not right now. He acted. And God then rewarded him based on his action. To the point that God waited till he had the knife, and the knife was coming down on his son, and God stopped him. And then God said, there's something else about me, Abraham, you need to know. That while you were going up on one side of the mountain, a ram was going up on the other side. That I just wanted to see what man cannot see. I can see the heart of faith. I can see the obedience of faith. See, some of us have not shown God in our hearts that we really believe him. And that's what he's looking at. The Bible tells you he looks at the what? He's not listening to what you said. We think because we say things, it makes it true. No, saying things doesn't make things true. It is true, therefore you believe. Believing doesn't make things true. It is but true, therefore you can believe. I think we've kind of got the thing backwards. We think because we say it, it's going to make it happen. No, it already happened. That's why you believe it. He was fully persuaded. Watch this. How were you persuaded, Father Abraham, that what he, God, had said or had promised, what God had promised, He also was persuaded. He was able also to what now? I don't know if you guys understand that. Now, this is the level we got to come through, friends. We've been messing around with these things. I walk by faith and not by sight. No, you don't. You haven't been convinced. You haven't. I'll speak about me then. A lot of times I said that it was a turkey shoot. I'm hoping something happens. I'm going to try to make something happen. I have not allowed God to operate. I didn't even know what time he was operating on. All he wanted me to do is operate right now, but right now might be several years from now. This word pathos means in the passive voice, you could say, I agree. When you read this Bible, do you ever close the Bible when maybe we'll say you're going to read a couple of passages? I know most of you don't read 4 or 5 hours at one set, so a couple of passages. Have you ever closed the Bible and said, I agree? I agree with everything I just read. Have you ever said that? I agree. Because that's been the problem. See, even theologians cannot agree that God opened the Red Sea. They don't believe. They say that is absolutely impossible. I don't have any problem with that myself. Because if I look out there and see a full moon just hanging out there in the sky, it just the full one when it's really bright, it just hanging, look like a little ball hanging out there, and it don't fall down. It just hanging and nothing holding it but the voice of God. The only thing that's holding that moon out there is this word, let there be. And there was a summons that went out. And man, the moon responds to the summons. And as long as the summons is in order, that moon will hang out there. It will subject itself to the order. I wish I had wrote this. Then I know what I'm talking about. Now listen to this. When we have the word to hear, it means to be subjected to authority. But when we're talking about the word persuasion, here's what it means. The obedience is not by submission to authority. No, that's not what persuasion is. What is it? But the result is resulting from, watch this here, it is resulting from the action of what you believe. It's resulting from persuasion. Sometimes we have not acted on God because we have not totally been what now? See, and you think you're tricking God by your multiple sayings. I'm walking by faith. God knows, hey, I know if you are or not. Who do you think you're tricking when I look at the heart? Now, you can trick me because I can't see faith in operation. But God looks at the what? See, that's the phase that we've missed. And we gave God a lot of external stuff. And God said, I wasn't looking at external stuff. I was looking at some inward stuff. See, the difference, well, watch this here then, watch this. Persuasion and trust are always closely related. In other words, if you got trust, you have been persuaded. And if you've been persuaded, you got trust. See, when you're persuaded, your vocabulary changes. Words like I wish or I might. It might happen. No, you start saying, if you truly believe it's going to happen, you say, this is going to happen. Not because I said it, but I heard a summons that told me to respond. The difference in meaning, watch this, in the word persuasion, implies, watch this, the obedience is produced by the faith. Now, peek here. Now watch this. Look at verse 20. Go back to verse 20 and 4. Because let me help you, because most theologians will mistranslate this verse. Let me read it about how you probably heard verse 20. Here's how you heard verse 20. He staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in faith. See, it appears that he's telling you the reason why he responded is because he was strong, his faith was strong. That's not what that verse is talking about. Somebody say, well, how do I know? Well, I know how the grammar is here. He's saying here, watch what, now here's what the Bible is telling you. He staggered not at the promise, because watch this, because the faith made him strong. Not that his faith was strong, the faith made him strong. See, it's not the size of your faith that produces. A little bit of faith can do the job. Oh, you guys not listening. And so we end up, because we read that passage that way, we end up, well, my faith wasn't strong enough. Well, how strong does it have to be before you can get out the car? I mean, how much does it take? Oh, see, it got quiet here because all you guys been talking about, well, if I can ever build up my faith strong enough. That ain't what Abraham did. Abraham said, I was able to deal with this issue because faith made me strong. And every time I began to weaken for 25 years, faith would say, no, God has said it. Therefore, you are persuaded. You are to hang in there. Don't care what they say, that you're not the father of many nations. Yes, I am. God said it. My faith made me strong. It's not the size of your faith. It's what faith can do to the individual. Now, I know you might not hear that from anybody else but here, but I wish somebody would take that verse then and exegete it, and you'll find out that's what he's talking about. If you don't believe it that way, you're going to always chase a measure of faith that you can never catch up with. Are you listening to me? Some of you have been chasing enough faith to get something done, and 20, 30 years done went by. But you already had what you had. You just wouldn't let it do what it was prepared to do. And so you've been wasting time. Wasting time trying to get a measure that you can't even measure. How do you measure faith? The Bible said he dealt to every man, and everybody's measure in this room is not the same. But it's enough for whatever you need to do. It's enough to make you strong in what God has told you to believe. Why would God give you something that's not strong enough for you to respond to and hold you responsible to it? Let me kick the left foot, because I just got the left foot of fellowship again. If you read what the disciples said when they were talking to Jesus, go back and read that, and they asked the question, increase our faith. He just read over that and kept on going. That is not the issue. He said it can be like a grain. all you need. No, he didn't even say it has to be the size of a mustard seed. He said a grain. Just break off some of it. Now you read that. You read it over and over and over again. Listen at this. The word persuasion implies the obedience that produces faith that's of the heart. Now, let's go back and look at something. Let's go over, while you're at Romans, look at Romans chapter 6, verse 17. Notice how God in verse 17, we're going to be talking about here the obedience, but he's also talking about faith. Notice how he puts it. Where does he locate it? Have you got 6:17? But God, he said, but God be thanks that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have what? From where? In other words, God even regulates your obedience. He regulates your obedience. And he even gave you a story about two boys. And he told one boy, that the father said, go out and work. He said, I ain't going. He told the other boy, he said, go out and work. He said, I'll be there. The one that said he wasn't going went there. The one that said he was going to go didn't go. He said, which one was obedient? The one that said he didn't go, but he did go. Also, to know that God didn't register his obedience by what he said. He registered obedience by what was in his what? He said the one that said he wasn't going, but in his heart he went. He said that was the one that was obedient. The one that said he was going to go but didn't go, that was a disobedient child. I'm looking at the heart. So all that talking, it doesn't mean a thing if it's just vocal lip service, if it's not from the heart. And if it's in the heart, you don't have to say it, because God can see it. Obedience is what's seen of the invisible faith. Whoa, that's something else, man. Hey, I'm telling you. We got to go back, man, and probably undo some thinking. Because we're trying to make things happen because we... The man said it, didn't make it. I'll be there. He didn't show up. The man said, I wasn't going to be there, but then later on he said, you know what? I better get on down there. I better get on down there, man. And he went on down there, boy. He said, well, which one is it? He said, I'm the one that I say I wasn't coming, but in my heart, I realized I had to get down there and go to work today. God said, you were the obedient one. Because, see, I know some guys don't like me to say this, but see, in that story, there were 3 sons. Now, you think it was only 2. There was 3 sons. The other son was the son of God. And he realized, watch this, and he said the one that even said he wouldn't go, but in his heart said he did go, was the one that was like the son of God. Because listen to this, friend, I'm jumping in my nose. The more you obey God is the more you become like God. You missed that. And the more you disobey God, the more you become unlike him. See, remember when you was out there running them streets, you were disobeying God. You weren't like God.
That's right.
You didn't want to hear nothing about God.
That's right.
You were like another God with a small g.
Yeah.
But then when you got saved, you started trying to be what now? And the more you become obedient, the more you become like him. It was disobedience that Adam lost the image of God. So the more I begin to obey, the more I ought to become more like the image that I was made in. Well, that's tough. Well, I'm messing up all my notes. I'm supposed to save that for later on. I'm supposed to save this for some, you know how you have dinner and save your dessert for later on? I've had some dessert that I was supposed to save for later on. And I done messed up and start serving the dessert before the main course is finished. Somebody told me if you eat your sweets before time, it'll mess up your appetite. Shirley always telling me if I eat my sweet, won't that mess up your appetite? It ain't messing up mine, it might mess up yours. But if I want something sweet, I can eat it right before I eat. And eat again after I eat. Look at Romans chapter 10, verse 9. Now, I'm gonna shake you up again. This verse is not telling you about how to get saved. However, you can use any verse to get saved. You can use Jesus wept. If that calls you to break your heart and call the name of Jesus, that verse will save you. Probably some people have gotten saved on that verse. They said, well, Jesus wept. He said, wept over my life. You know what? I ought to give my life to him. Yeah, I was a sad case. I caused him to cry. This verse here is used when the Roman Empire was asking all believers, in fact, everybody, to say that Caesar is Lord. John was banished to the Isle of Patmos because he wouldn't say it. Because he believed something else. Now I'm saying that if you get it in your heart, can't nobody else make it be something else. Now the thing that's going to throw you off is the word saved. But that word there could also mean delivered. And in AD 60 and AD 96, because John believed in God, he was delivered off the Isle of Patmos. Somebody said, and I don't know if it's true, but one of the writers said before he left, they put him in a vat of oil. And he still didn't die. Because what he believed in his heart. Now, I don't know if that's true, but some of the old fathers have said that was the case. I was not there because I wasn't alive in AD 96. So I'm not saying that is the truth, but I know what is the truth. I know that John got off that island by Emperor Nerva in AD 96. That emperor said, you can go back to Ephesus, John. And John went back to Ephesus, and in Ephesus he wrote the Revelation. Oh, you follow what I'm saying? And he remembered it out there all that time. He was out there for 14 years. And God was just giving him a picture all the time. He had color, wide screen, flat screen, pure color. I know it's color because he even saw them jewels. They was all them blues, and he had color TV before you had it. And he had to maintain, and one of his testimonies was that, man, we must believe in our hearts that Jesus is Lord regardless of what anybody else might say. Now that's what moves God. So now we read now verse 10, chapter 10, verse 9. He says here, now well, let me read verse 8. Because verse 8 is a quote from Deuteronomy, from the Jewish people. And most of the Christians here at Rome were Jews. So they understood that quote because it's in the law of Moses. And in the law of Moses, it says, watch what it says here. It says here that, but what saith it? The word is nigh thee. Where is it? Even in thy mouth. And where? In the heart. The word is nigh thee. It is so near to you that it's in your heart. And if it's in your heart, it will also be in your mouth. Because it's in your mouth, because it's in your what? In the heart is your head. I believe that Jesus is Lord regardless of whoever else might say they're Lord. He said the word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. What is it? What is it? It's that is the word of faith which we preach. Now, John was on Isle of Patmos because of two reasons. One was because he believed in the word of God, and one because he gave a preaching testimony of who Jesus was. He was called on the carpet by Domitian, because Domitian wanted everybody to say Caesar, because he was a Caesar at that time, is Lord. So he probably heard about a little old guy named John. They said, John's not saying that. Who is John? John who? That guy that's been preaching around here. He won. Now remember, now you got to understand the Roman Empire. It didn't matter what religion you had, as long as you said that Caesar's Lord. You could be a Buddhist, you could be anything. You could be a Christian, but you had to say. Now, how can you be a Christian and say that Caesar is Lord? See, you got to understand why they crucified Jesus. They crucified Jesus because he claimed that he was a king. They asked, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus said, well, you said it. Do I have to say what you just said? You just said it. Do you believe what you said? They understood that. Now, once they set up this situation about the word is nigh thee, even in the mouth and in the heart, the word that is preached, then he goes and tells us this in verse 9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the what? They had to make a confession. And the confession was, here, man, is Kaiser Kurios, meaning that Caesar is the Lord of the universe. He said, now if you're a Christian, you cannot say that, even unto death. See, some of you guys probably say, well, can I just say it and then repent afterward? Because I don't know what kind of pressure they're gonna put on me if I don't say it, man. They might put nails under my fingernails or something, man. They might cut off my ears or something like that. Because I've had people tell me that. Well, Pastor, could I, I might just say it, but I don't really mean it. But you got to say what's in your heart. So, here's what he said. Paul said, no, we can't say that. If thou shalt confess to the mouth the Lord Jesus, and shall believe it where? And shall believe in your heart. Now watch this. Jesus Christ at this time had already been crucified. He said, I believe that the real king is one that died and came back alive again. Can Caesar do that? No. And I believe that with all my heart. In John's case, John said, I saw him. I put my hands on him. John said, I did something that your mind can't even understand. I handle a spirit body. And it didn't pass through. Go back and read what he said. He said, I handle it. He said, well, I'm a spirit. But does a spirit have, but doesn't have flesh and bone? But he said, I saw your hands. Yeah. In fact, when you go to heaven right now, you know what you're going to see? You're going to see something that's man-made. Yeah. You're going to see some man-made stuff in heaven. You're going to look at the hand, man made those holes in his hands. You're going to look at his feet, man made those holes in his feet. Man made that scar in his side. That's man-made stuff. And all throughout eternity, you're going to be seeing what man made. But man-made didn't stop who he was. I believe he rose from the dead. And because he rose from the dead, to me, he's going to always be Lord. Put me in the vat of hot oil. When I come up, he's still Lord. He's still Lord. Get him out of there then. Oh, you got it. See, it's amazing, though. People say, I can't believe that John was put in the vat of hot oil, but you believe that the Hebrew boys were put into a furnace. See how your mind is confused? I don't believe that a man can get into a vat of hot oil and live, but you can believe that Daniel can go into the lion's den with about 300 lions. If you look at that lion, it's an S on them lions. It wasn't one lion. It's the lion's den. And all of them were hungry. Somebody, I don't know if it's true, but in reading literature, they say there's about 300 lions in that cave, in that den. And Daniel rolls in, man, and throws down his little pallet and spoke to the lion, hey, it's time to go to sleep. Now, I know you wouldn't be sleeping in the lion den. You're going to try to watch all 300. And you can't get out because they sealed that door. They sealed that door. They said they put a seal on the door. But in the morning, man, the king came and said, hey, Daniel. Daniel said, hey. How'd you sleep last night? Well, Leo came over and put his little stomach right under my head. I slept right on the lion all night. I heard his stomach. He was growling. He was definitely hungry, but he didn't eat me. Now, this is what they call hyperbole preaching. It's kind of true, but it might not be all true. But it's kind of true. It's close. That puts a little color to the story. But you know the story. And we know what Nebuchadnezzar did when they had the boys in the fiery furnace. He looked in there. He must have a little peek hole. And say, how many guys did we put? How many guys did we put in the furnace? 3. What those boys' name? Meshach, Shadrach, Abednego. He said, well, that's 3, but I see 4. And then he said something that's so powerful that even, boy, the theologians don't even want to accept what he said. He said, I saw the 4th one. It was the son, had the appearance of the Son of God. They said he was talking about an idol god. No, he wasn't talking about an idol god. Idol gods would have burned up in that furnace. Whether it was wood or metal, because he heated it up 7 times. It had to be a God that understood air conditioning. Again, hyperbole. He walked down there and blew on the fire. Took the heat out the fire. That was the first air conditioner that we ever found out about in Jesus Christ. We know it was cool because their clothes didn't even burn.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
But it was still fire.
Still fire.
Well, see, the fire was still in there. But the heat of the fire was not there. Because when Jesus got in there, he took all the heat out the fire. I don't believe that. Well, that's all right. You're not persuaded. I believe it. Listen to me then. When a man obeys God, he not watch this. He gives the only possible evidence that in his heart he believes. Oh, I'm gonna say that to you again. See, you don't have to tell me you believe.
That's right.
I'm gonna read that to you again because you missed it. Watch this. When a man obeys God, he gives the only possible evidence that in his heart he believes God. So you don't have to tell me I'm obedient. Do it. James said, if you hear it, do it. Don't just be a hearer of the word. Hearing don't mean a thing. All of us heard it, but hey, but I want to see the one that's able to what now? That's evidence. That's the only evidence that you can prove that you obey God is by what you do. Uh-oh, you guys don't come on. See, America, boy, I wish I had wrote this another way, because this is good. Preaching is so good I can't take it myself. See, in America, we'll do a poll, like a Harris poll or some kind of poll, and all of a sudden we get 90% of Americans say they're Christians. See, don't. Come on now. No, the evidence is what you do. If you don't go to church, if you don't pray, if you don't read this word, you're not a Christian. You just said it. I'm going to give you what I just see. I see someone look at me real funny right now. Let me tell you, let me give you my little phrase I wrote here. Listen, I said this. When a man obeys God, he gives the only possible evidence that that in his heart he believes and trusts God. You don't have to tell anybody you're a Christian. Start acting like one. Start talking like one. Start taking your Bible on the bus and reading it. Start telling somebody, I believe in Jesus. Slap me down, that's all right, I still believe. I'll confess what's in my heart. Call me what you want to call me. It doesn't matter because Jesus called me a son of God. So it don't matter what you call me. You ain't got to tell me. I don't even like people to ask me if I'm a Christian. If you got to ask me, my witness is kind of lousy. Oh, boy. Ooh, I wish I had wrote this message, boy. I didn't write that. I didn't have that information. Although it's in my head. But I couldn't put it on the paper. So don't ask me to say this again because I don't know what I'm saying. But I know this. If it's in your heart, you'll act like it. And if you're not acting like it, you can say what you want to say. If you don't act like the God you serve, then you are not serving the God that I know. So you can't be going to the strip club and talking about I'm a Christian. I'm going to have a night out with the girls. I just thought I'd just throw that out there just to let you know just in case. Now, I ain't call no name. That's just the one that came into my head. And not because I ever been to one. I ain't never even been to one. But I know that's fashion today. They got a place here called a gentleman's club. A gentleman's club? What do the gentlemen do in the club? But I'm a Christian. When the poll comes out, I put my name on 90% of Americans are Christians. 11 o'clock on Sunday, I don't see they don't show up. Some of them are watching the Christianity called the NFL. Now, I'm not saying you can't watch the NFL, but you watch the NFL after you serve God. After you serve God. I know that because I had a struggle. I'm not going to testify. When God called me to preach, I asked God, can I preach on Saturday? Can I be a 7-day Adventist?
And he said no.
He did say no. I asked him more than once. I said, why can't we go to church on Saturday? It doesn't matter what day you go. He said, but for you, I'm going to keep it on Sunday. Because I know what you want to do is in your heart. You want to sit at home all day Sunday, starting at about 9 or 10 o'clock, watching the church called the NFL. Now watch this. He broke it. Do you know when he broke it? When they had the first time they had the NFL play the AFL for the Super Bowl. I missed that game and went to church. Was that Joe Namath? That was supposed to be the classical. Was that the classical one, Keith? That's a classic. That was a classic. I went to church, man, and that broke it. Everybody said, man, did you see that game? No. Well, where were you? At church. And that broke it right there. I've never had a desire now to stay at home and watch the NFL on Sunday. Hey, when it's time to get up, in fact, Saturday, I'm thinking about coming to church.
That's right. Amen.
So don't tell me you can't break things when you put God first. It was in my heart. I realized I had to go to church on Sunday and preach and teach the Word of God. Now I'm, watch this, not set free, I'm made free. Because I can be in here right now. I'm just as free. I don't care who winning the game now. I don't even know who playing today. I don't care. I'll probably go home and try to find out who it is. But I don't know right now. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. And then you can add some things to it. Oh, you guys ain't getting all of that. See, after I leave here, I can go and turn on the TV. I don't even want to know no scores. Some guys say, man, why don't you get you a TiVo? Hey, I don't know. I ain't going to run the, hey, I might as well, hey, I don't have one. Don't need it. Because I have a paper called the Monday Morning Time. I'll read about it if I want to find out. But Christ comes first. First. Man, my time, I got 18 seconds. Ain't nothing I can say in 18 seconds. By the time I put my glasses on, that's 18 seconds. In fact, I got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.